guys can have a seat. All right, so a few things before we get started tonight. I got to address some of the things, and there's a thing that happened to me last night that changed my life forever. And it's because of you guys. It's because of you guys. So if you know, you know. About a month and a half ago when we did that gaming tournament on live stream, I said it was like 5 o'clock, and I was like, hey, if this live stream gets 100 likes by 5:30, I'll get a tattoo. I don't know why I said that. Because it was literally, I saw it, everyone started texting all their friends, all this group chat, and you guys did it. You guys at 5:29 on April 26th, 2021, you guys got 100 likes on that live stream, and it made it like blow up, and now look at this. I have a G on my body for the rest of my life. So good job, you guys. You guys did. Hey, you never know what's going to happen. I might next week be like, hey, if you get 100 likes on this YouTube video, I'll shave my head. Who knows? You never know. You never know. I shouldn't shave my head? No? Okay. I'm taking offense to that. But hey, so if you see everybody's wearing these shirts, you guys can get these, and this is our new series. We're going through the book of Ephesians, and I just like, the reason why I love to make merch is not because I think it's cool, but because I want every single day, because y'all have to wear clothes every single day. I think everyone does. Yeah, okay, cool. Y'all have to wear clothes every single day, and I want you to be reminded about what we talk about here. That's why I love social media, because I would love for you to take what we talk about on a Wednesday night, spread it throughout the week. I want you guys to look at these shirts and be reminded about the truth. And if you haven't picked one up yet, we are giving you free devotionals. It's a little booklet. You need your Bible, you need a journal, and you need that Devo, and just spending time with God alone, by yourself, without a phone, unplug. I know, crazy, but if you do that, I swear you'll see some serious growth, and in your life, you'll just be like, oh my goodness, my life is changing when you get alone with God. There's life in the quiet. I've experienced it for myself, and I want you guys to experience it as well. So, who likes history in this room? Any history fans? All right, cool, you do, that's good. Abraham Lincoln, y'all know that dude? Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln. It was a different time when Abe Lincoln was president. It's not your father. You could, when Abraham Lincoln walked into the office, you could have just walked up to the office and been like, you could have crashed there that night. Like, you could have crashed at the White House if you wanted to. You could have walked in and said, yo, what's up, Abe? How you doing? You could have dapped up Abe if you wanted to. Being serious. Totally different time. You can't do that now. I love going to Washington, D.C., and the White House has so much security. So much security. It's crazy. It's a totally different time. And the reason why I like history, because you asked, the reason why I love history is because I want to imagine myself in that time. I just want to sit down and just picture, like, what was life like in history when Abe Lincoln was president? Especially because during Abraham's presidency, there was a lot of racial tension going on. The economy was really bad. It was like crazy. It was like no one was having jobs. It was crazy. And there was a ton of political disunity. I wonder what it was like to live in Abe Lincoln's time. It's pretty hard to imagine, right? No, it's not, because that's the world we live in right now. We are so divided. You turn on Facebook, you go on social media, you go on Twitter. It's everywhere. We are so divided. And recently, a Washington Post did a survey and surveyed a bunch of people, and 71% of people said we are at a point in America where there's no more hope. And that was a few years ago. That's not including 2020 and 2021, the craziness of that, all that stuff. And so I want to talk about this thing that is going on in humanity for a really long time. It's this notion to segregate into us's and them's. Us's and them's. Because woven deep within humanity is this notion to segregate and to be divided. And I know you guys experience this as well. You got the athlete kids. You got some of y'all just show up in all camo. That's you guys. That's your us. Some of you got the music kids. Love music. Did I say sports? Yeah, sports. Some of you do chess. Some of you do. And we break up into a lot of non-harmless ways. But there's a lot of ways we break up in this room into us's and them's. Some of us break up into the same political party and the same thoughts because it's more comfortable to be with the us's. It's nice to be with the us's because we think the same. It's comfortable. I like this genre of music, and these people like this genre of music, and it's comfortable to be around the us's. It's comfortable to be around the same race because that's what I'm comfortable with. I get the culture. This is what I'm used to. And for humanity, for a long time, has done it, and we also do it here in this room. We break up into us's and them's. Part of it's my fault. 2 weeks ago, we had this thing called, what was the name of that event? Oh, that's it, yeah. And we broke up into, what were the colors? Red and blue. It was rigged. And so I feel like a horrible youth guy because I want to talk about unity this month, and I want to talk about us coming together, and all of a sudden I create an event where I have half the youth group angry at each other. We have leaders making fun of students. We have students making fun of leaders. Just because they're on two different teams, it's just two colors, and I did not know the chaos that it would instill. Literally, last week, you guys didn't realize this, but during the announcements, when Matt blew off that confetti, I shouldn't say his name. Well, yeah, you were there. Matt did it. Matt blew off that confetti, right? I thought I had a concussion. I thought he came up and just knocked me out. It was scary. And it was just because he was on the blue team and I was on the red team. It's crazy how we can divide into us's and them's. Harmless ways, also not so harmless ways. As we break up and we have our own little friend groups, right? We have these certain groups, and this group over here likes to talk about that group back there. And that group back there likes to talk about this group, and this group likes to talk about that group. And we like to talk about each other, and there's a lot of hostility between different groups. And this has been a problem with humanity for a long time. Wars have broken out. I mean, you just see it in the Middle East conflict right now. It's crazy what's going on in the Middle East right now. Just because of two different worldviews, people are literally dying. And it's getting crazy. And I see the world you guys are getting brought up in. And the political disunity is so bad, it's like, is there any common ground anymore? Is there any way we could just talk to each other? And a lot of it's culture because some of you guys, when you have a problem with somebody, you just love to fight about it. That's what you know. That's what you know. Is that good? Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. I think there's a better way. Be honest. Can't win all your problems with fights. Can't win all your problems with gossip. Can't win all your problems talking bad about another person. You can't win all your problems the way maybe you brought up. And you might get some victories, you might get some dubs. But man, that's not going to solve any issues. The crazy thing is, Christians have done this for a really long time, too. We've done it a really long time. There's a bunch of people. Sometimes maybe you've even met these Christians. They're some of the meanest Christians in the world, right? And they judge you. They look at you And they're like, oh my goodness, you have to change. Oh my goodness. And some of you experience that. Some of you experience Christians that are just like, oh my gosh. So maybe that's why you don't even believe in God. It's because some of the Christians you met. And you're like, hypocrites. Like, you say you love God. You say God has changed your life, but yet you are angry all the time. You make fun of me. You're mad all the time. How, like, is God love? Like, where the heck have you been talking to God recently? Like, hey, can you get some of that joy? Like, some of you experience some really mean Christians. Because the thing is, this is woven deep into humanity. And the beautiful thing is, there's some hope tonight. There's some hope tonight. And we're going through this series called Ephesians. And like I said last week, it's the most concise and precise book. It's only 6 chapters long. It can change your life. Just listen to it for 15 minutes on the audio Bible. And you can understand, the more you read it, the more you digest it, understand the Christian life. And we're at this point in Ephesians 2, where the front end of Ephesians 2, what Algernon talked about 2 weeks ago at FSKO, he said that you can be right with God. Individually, that you can be right with God. You can know by the end of tonight that God is smiling upon you. That it's by the grace of Jesus and through faith that you can be right with Jesus. It's nothing about what you could do or all the works or all these good Christian things you could do. It's by grace and grace alone that you are saved. And then in the backhand of Ephesians 2, we actually see that something bigger is going on. That Paul is saying, actually, what the work of Jesus did is so powerful. It's not just bringing dead people alive, it's bringing enemies into friends. God is in the business of taking formerly distant parties and making them friends. God is in the business of taking Republicans and Democrats and making them friends. God is in the business, and this is what he is doing. And I believe this passage, the passage that we read tonight, can give this world hope. Because I look at the answer, I look on news, I'm like, there's just no hope for this world. But the beautiful thing is that there is hope. And it's a passage that we just read. And so if you have your Bible, I want you to start turning to Ephesians chapter 2, verse 11. And I want you to follow along with us as we get into it tonight. He says this in verse 11. Don't forget that you Gentiles used to be outsiders, you who were uncircumcised heathens by the Jews who were proud of their circumcision. What the heck is he just said? Did he just say circumcision? Like, this is getting awkward. Why are you going to call each other names? Like, what is the whole deal about calling yourself circumcision? Why would you ever call yourself the group of people circumcision? That's just a weird name. You don't see that name being in sports teams or anything like that. That's just weird. There's a reason why. And I'll be right back. No, I'm not leaving just yet. I'm bringing some props with me. Hula hoops. I want to explain this. Oh, it's just hula hoops. So, hey. Listen, you got God right here. You got the Jewish people right here. And you got the Gentiles right here. Gentiles is it just a term I'm about to explain? Gentiles were any nation other than the Jewish people. So, anybody in here Jewish? I don't think so. So, it's literally all of us. And so, when you read the Bible, you just see a lot of all this people talking about Israel and Jewish, because in the beginning, in the book of Genesis, God made a covenant, and he gave circumcision as a symbol to these people to say, hey, what's on the outside is what's on the inside. But the problem with what happens because God gave them, these people, his word, God gave them promises and a hope to look forward to, because the people in that day knew there was something wrong with this world and wanted answers. But God chose this nation and blessed this nation to bless these people. So God gave these group of people privilege. The problem with privilege is oftentimes when people have a sense of privilege, they usually, instead of blessing other people, they like to curse and make fun of other people. And so back in the time, the Jewish people called those people, the uncircumcision, as like a diss. I don't know why. Don't ask me why. And he made fun of these people. Say, we're chosen by God and you're not. We're favored by God. You guys are stupid. We got God on our side, you don't. That was what's going on. The Jews and the Gentiles in the first century was like Israel and Palestine today. It was deep and it was ugly and there was no communication. But God's heart from the get-go was for this nation to bless those people. God chose this nation so that this nation could reach those people. And he says it in verse 12. He says this. He says, who were proud of their circumcision, even though it only affected their bodies and not their hearts. That's verse 11, sorry. It didn't affect their hearts. See, the Jewish people, they had a really good system going. They got the religion stuff down. Like they went to Fuse on Wednesdays. They went to church. They played on the worship team. They had all the externals right. They read their Bibles a lot. They prayed a lot. But Paul says their hearts were far from God. Because God doesn't want just the externals. He wants the internal. He wants to know that your heart is right. And so all throughout Deuteronomy, Jeremiah, Joshua, you see God being upset with his people because their heart wasn't right. Because they were making fun of those people. Crazy conflict. And the truth is, if you're writing notes, write this down. A loss of empathy, when you can't communicate, when you can't sit down and try to talk with somebody like this was going on, leads to a loss of civility. And a loss of civility is the birthplace of hostility. Anger, distrust, fights. A loss of empathy, caring for other people, leads to a loss of civility, just trying to have some common ground. And that is the birthplace of hostility. And so we see that in playing out in this time period. And this is why it brings me so hope, because I see like this has been going on, and Paul's addressing this, and Paul's leaning into the conversation. And he says this in verse 12. He says, remember that you are at the time separated from Christ, alienated from the commonwealth of Israel, and strangers to the covenants of promise, having no hope without God. Having no hope without God. These people were living life, doing their thing. No, there's problems in the world. The world's crazy, chaotic, but they had no hope. They were just living life. Do you describe yourself as not having any hope tonight? When's the last time you felt any hope? Maybe you feel like you don't have any hope. These people do. And Paul, predominantly writing to these people, says this in verse 13. But now, he's providing some hope. Now you have been united with Christ Jesus. Once you were far away from God, but now you have been brought near to him through the blood of Christ. For Christ himself has brought peace to us. He united the Jews and Gentiles into one people when his own body on the cross, he broke down the wall of hostility that separated us. He said that once you've been far off, maybe you feel like you're far off. That you didn't grow up in church. That this is your only church you ever go to. That when I talk about Ephesians, you're like, I have no idea what Ephesians is. And you've done some pretty horrible things. And you've done some pretty shady stuff. And you've been in places that no one should be in. And you've said things that no one should ever say. And you've done things that you regret. And you feel like you're far off. Maybe you've made some decisions that you regret. And you grew up in Christian, but you're making these choices and you feel this overwhelming sense of guilt. Paul says this, that you've been brought near by what? The cross. And he united these two people, the Jews and the Gentiles, and broke down the wall of hostility through the cross. What's Paul saying? He's saying you want to be unified? Humility destroys hostility. Humility destroys hostility. When you come in and you realize that you are so broken, And because the Jewish people didn't understand that. They thought they were good because of their rules. They thought they were good because they went to church. They thought they were good because they had all this stuff together. And you know what the Gentiles did? Gentiles were like, you bunch of hypocrites. You church people, you don't even know what you're still rude. You're still angry. You're just a bunch of rule-following morons. You have no idea the pain I've went through. You don't understand the story of I've been through. You don't understand my home life. You have no idea. The problem is that they're both so guilty and that they're both are not on good terms. And Jesus is the only one that can unite these two groups together. Because when you look at the cross, you see the death that Jesus died, and you see that you're guilty. That brings humility. And when you are humble, write this down if you're taking notes. Humility brings unity. Humility brings unity. And so, Anthony, what are you saying? Well, so often in life, in our personal lives, when we're angry and when we're hostile, we want to have an edge. We feel like we need to be better. We feel like we need to get up on and dominate and be aggressive. And the beautiful thing about God's kingdom and the beautiful thing about the way of Jesus is that's the total opposite of what he calls his followers to be. And we see it in culture, and when we see humility, that brings unity. And that's what I want in your personal lives, as you're dealing with trouble relationally, as you're dealing with trouble in your family life. But I want this as a youth group as well. I really do. And so maybe you saw it, maybe you didn't, but we got a new logo and a new branding, and I love this logo because as I was pitching all the Fuse to this graphic designer, he came up with this logo, and it's on the hat. But if you can tell, maybe you've looked at it and you're like, what the heck is this? This is the dumbest thing ever. I don't get it. And I've gotten a lot of those comments, and that's why I'm like, okay, that makes me so happy because you don't see it, and that's great. And so once I saw it for myself, it blew my mind, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is it. Because what this is, it's a square. A square's got 4 straight lines and a circle. 2 very distinct shapes. 2 very distinct shapes. They're not similar in any sort of way. It's like the Jews and the Gentiles. But my heart for this ministry, my heart for every single Wednesday night is for the squares and the circles coming together as one. And the only way we're going to do that as a youth group is through humility. Is realizing that we're all guilty and that no one is better than anybody else. That's why, I'll be honest, I don't like stages like this, because maybe some of you feel like the students that led us in worship tonight are better than you because they're the goody two-shoe Christian kids, and I'm not, and it's this distance from each other, and you can't relate to these people. That's why I don't like it, because the thing is, we're all broken. We're all in need. We're all guilty, myself included. Like Paul said, he's the worst of sinners. The guy that wrote majority of the New Testament, he says he's the worst of sinners. And I'll be honest, I feel like I'm the worst sinner here in this room. You know why? Because I know what to do. And I know what not to do. But a lot of times I choose what not to do. Because there's something wrong with me. And I believe that's going to bring unity. Because I'm going to be honest with you guys. There's a lot of cliques here tonight. And there's a lot of groups here tonight. And you got your group, and that's fine. But what I would love to see, and what the whole gospel is, and what the end of the story, read the end of the Bible. It's all nations, from every color, every ethnicity, every demographic coming together as one, being united. And I want that. And I believe this, That if we could do that here in this room, because we got some kids that love Jesus, and you know who you are, you don't care about Jesus. I would love to see us be united here in this room. Because if we do that, in such a divided world that we live in such a toxic world, maybe in your home life, online, but if we could be united here, I believe this, I really do that. This can change the world, but especially could change the community. It can change your high school, whatever high school you go to, South Johnson, like wherever. It can change our globe when formerly distant parties are becoming, once enemies, now becoming friends. And the only way to do that, and he says it in verse 16, he says, together as one body, Christ reconciled both groups to God by means of death of the cross, and our hostility towards each other was put to death. That anyone who recognizes their guilty and comes in with humility, that we can find unity. Because the grounds of our unity is humility, but the goal is glory. Because here's the deal. God is happy. God will be really happy. You want to make God, the creator of the universe, happy? We need to get along. We need to get along. All different types of home situations, all different types of ethnicities, all different types of cultures. We need to get along. That's going to glorify God. Let me explain it like this. Let me just say, there's this song that breaks out, and it just blows up for white people. Like, California, white people love it. New York, white people love it. South, white people love it. Like, everybody, all white people love it. And I was trying to sell you the song, and you'd be like, well, what is it? Like, what is it, Boca or something? Like, what is it? Is it Boca music? Like, what is it? It's not that great because it's just uniting white people. But imagine if I said this. Imagine a song went across the entire globe, from people from New York to China to Australia. Everywhere in the world, people are going crazy for this song. Young people, old people, everyone's going crazy for the music. And you would be like, well, I got to hear it. What song is it? I got to know. Because unity brings glory. When you could get a bunch of people to agree, that just produces glory. And we could glorify our Maker if we get united. And I know those of you who are following Jesus, you want to glorify God. That's what we're called to do. And so you might not have to start singing this next worship song. You might not even have to read your Bible. I know I'm saying that. You might just have to start loving your enemies. You might have to just start talking to different people here on a Wednesday night. You might have to just start reaching out. That's what you want to glorify God. That's what you should do. And if you're not a Christian and you're coming in here and you have no hope and you feel like you're a Gentile and you feel lost and you feel so broken, I know I say this every week, but it's true. That God is insanely in love with you. For God so loved the world that whoever believes will not perish, but have everlasting life. Life here in the present, but life in eternity. And I know this, when you believe in Jesus, you will have life. Like I said last week, it changes your new identity. And I believe this, he's making a new humanity. And I want to believe that he's starting with us here tonight.